Hello and welcome to the Bitcoin Today podcast from Crypto Coiners. Here is everything you need to know about the price of Bitcoin on Wednesday, July 23rd. And that price actually dropped modestly as expected. We talked about this in the last podcast, but that's as far as it went. The bullish trend on the daily chart, it's actually more or less confirmed by what we are seeing on the hourly chart. We'll get back to that shortly. But what's more important is the sentiment is now much more positive than it was. So this might actually mean that it's about time for yet another all-time high. Another one, we've seen many already in July, but this might not have been the last one. Okay, let's talk about the report card first, the crypto report card, which basically is a sentiment indicator, and it has risen to an 8 because of altcoins. We've discussed this last week as well. The trend for many of those altcoins has now finally reversed to bullish. Actually, in most cases, very convincingly bullish. And there's no altcoin season yet. You really need more than 10 days of altcoin price increases. This trend reversal thing shows us something. Basically, it shows us that amongst retail traders and investors, there's now much more bullishness and enthusiasm for altcoins. You also, if you follow the crypto news, you also see that more and more institutional investors are now having an eye towards altcoins. There's much more talk than ever before about things like Solana and Ethereum and even XRP, which means that the altcoin season hasn't started yet, but altcoins are now much more on the radar screen, which is ultimately good for Bitcoin as well, of course. Let's talk about Bitcoin and the volatility, the monthly volatility. No changes there. Ever since the last all-time high last week, Monday, we still have the same volatility, 17.2%, which is lower than what one might expect. The typical average volatility for a month is 21.7%, which is about 4.5% higher, which means that we have room. There's room for drops. There's also room for price increases, and a healthy range at the moment based on the average volatility for July is 101,300 at the lower side and 127,800 at the upper side. Mind you, this is not a forecast. This is just telling us where it could go. If the price drops, what would still be healthy? If the price rises, what would still be healthy? That's what the monthly volatility tells us. We'll need the charts and we'll need the trends on those charts to tell us what the most realistic direction is that the price could go. So what's with the average daily volatility? Well, it's probably for the last time today as high as it is now, 4.6%, has been as high as this for a few weeks now, or at least 10 days. And the reason that it's going to drop is because a very important low, the low of June 22nd, will disappear. That will basically fade out. It will disappear because we only look at the last 30 days. And that means that tomorrow the volatility will drop, therefore the bandwidth will drop as well, the range that we can expect. For today, it's still pretty high. It's 4.6% volatility, which means a bandwidth of $115,000 at the lower side and $121,500 at the upper side. It also means if the price, for some reason, would go beyond this range, the day will be interesting. Will it happen today? Maybe. Will it happen tomorrow? Could very well be, because as I said, tomorrow we'll have a much smaller range. We'll see that tomorrow. Let's look at some charts, the daily and the hourly charts. If you don't see the charts, that's perfectly normal because this is an audio-only podcast. If you want to see those charts, together with my comments about those charts, you might want to take a look at the show notes, which you'll find at bitcointodaypodcast.com. The daily chart, it's very bullish. It's very stably bullish. It's very consistently bullish. And technically, we had a low yesterday, which might appear to be, or might turn out to be a swing low at $116,186. If the price today does not drop below $116,186, we have a new swing low. It might be a new swing low. So a new trough, which means a new bottom, and that would be textbook. It would be a bullish pattern continuation with higher highs and higher lows all the time. Now, something else happened. Last podcast, last week Friday, I talked about declining momentum that actually did materialize. There was very little momentum up till yesterday. Yesterday was the first time. It's actually the green, a really green candle with a huge body compared to the wicks, which shows us that momentum is returning. And momentum is basically the steepness of price increases in times of bullish trends as we're in right now. So the chance of higher prices and possibly a new all-time high have increased dramatically over the last 2 days or so. Is that then confirmed by the hourly chart? And that is an interesting question, and the answer is even more interesting, because one could say, I don't know, because the hourly chart is very erratic at the moment. We have seen 10 or 11 trend reversals since the last podcast, which is only a few days ago. And that's very many trend reversals for an hourly chart. It tells us that it's very erratic, as I said, and that you couldn't draw a simple conclusion out of the hourly chart. However, if you look a little bit further than just trend reversals and look at the steepness of the price movement within those trend reversals, you see something interesting. Every time the trend reversed into bearish, the price movement wasn't as huge as it was when the trend reversed into bullish. There was much more price action when the price was in a bullish trend than it was in a bearish trend, which tells me that the bullish trends are basically more convincing than the bearish trends on these charts, even though the chart at times really was bearish. It's actually bullish at the moment I'm recording this podcast, which is it's 11:30 right now here in Europe. It might be different in the time in the zone where you are, but at the moment, if I'm looking at this hourly chart, it is still bullish. So it is supporting the daily chart at the moment, and actually, in my opinion, it has been supporting the daily chart all throughout the last 5 to 6 days. And that's an interesting one, because you really need a supporting faster chart to define if the trend on a slower chart, like the daily chart, is actually consistent. So what do we have? We have a bullish monthly, weekly, and daily chart, more or less supported by the hourly chart. What kind of expectation can you take out of that? Well, here's my expectation for the coming few days. Firstly, the chance of a new all-time high. Yes, I think that chance has increased. Look at the monthly volatility first. There's still room there. The daily chart is bullish, and bullish momentum on the daily chart is actually increasing. Look at the candle from yesterday. The hourly chart, if not bullish, at least does not diverge with the daily chart. There's no clear signal there that this bullish daily chart is in some way going to change into bearish. So what I'm going to do is to have a very close eye on the daily range. And the daily range for today is still pretty high. It will be much lower for the few days thereafter. But for today, if the price actually moves out of the zone 115,000 till 121,500, it will be a very interesting day. If that breakout only happens tomorrow, which is much more feasible, then tomorrow will be very interesting. And in my opinion, the chances of us seeing a new all-time high the coming few days are higher than the chances of us seeing significant lows. Now, mind you, that might change next week when we are approaching August 1st very quickly, because then the tariff news and rumors and stuff will basically influence everything that traders and investors do. But until then, I'm still focusing on the chance of seeing a new all-time high. And that's exactly what I'm doing, telling you what I think is going to happen, what I'm focusing on. What I'm not doing, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not giving you any financial advice or something. The only thing that you're actually hearing from me is what I expect. And it's not a prediction. No one can predict the price actually, so I will never tell you what to do. I will give you a tip to buy or sell anything. Okay, with that said, I'm looking forward to meeting with you again. Let's see each other again tomorrow for the next episode of the Bitcoin Today podcast. Until then, bye.